All right, let's call this episode 55. Yeah, I think that's about right. Of the Athletic Philosopher podcast. I am your humble host, Jordan Goldstein, former university professor in sport history, philosophy, psychology. Got absolutely kicked out of the university for a bunch of views that my guest here today knows all too well. I'm very excited to welcome to the podcast Mr. Ronald Potts, one of my oldest, probably the oldest friend from the social media sphere. One of the only people who knows me from my free speech warrior days when I actually was a professor before everything in the world turned upside down. And he's been on quite the journey on his own and kind of with me and in my orbit in terms of moving from the issues of freedom into more like the personal sovereignty through fitness, which is what I do now that I'm not a professor. And the reason I wanted to have Mr. Potts on tonight is because he took part in the Prairie on Fire Backyard Ultra that was the topic of episode 53 and 54, and just the A race, the main race, the best race of the year when it comes to all of the endurance stuff that I do. And I just wanted to invite him on so that we could do a little race debrief because this was his first big time competition. And he absolutely turned out putting up a massive PR performance. 10 laps, 41
Yes, sir.
miles, absolute savage. And I'll let him talk about the details of that. But why don't you just introduce yourself to the people, and then we will get going with our debrief.
Yeah, like you said, my name's Ronald Potts. George and I have been connected on old school Twitter since 17, and we both started out in the free speech warrior atmosphere, political activism type stuff, and now we both completely moved off of it, and it's better. And I'm a carpenter by day, and my vocation is a carpenter, and my avocation is to coach and help people get better.
Yeah, absolutely. Ronald's in kind of our orbit of people who are using physical fitness as a tool for just overall life development. And I'll certainly drop his handle. If you like what you hear from him, get in contact because he certainly knows what he's doing as testament to the race that we're going to talk about. And I thought it would be fun to take Ronald through the same debrief that I did with all of our tribal training athletes because Ronald's part of my coach, Zach Hommel's Do Hard Things community. And we teamed up tribal training and the Do Hard Things community to take down this backyard ultra together. And it's just another exposition of the kind of philosophy that, we preach, we practice, and that we teach when it comes to these races. So we're just going to go through four very simple prompts. The first being, Ronald, just give us your race description, your race summary, your experience from showing up to the campground to the race itself, to packing up, the things that kind of stuck out to you. Number two is your biggest highlight from the race. Number three, which may take up the bulk of our time, which is what lessons did you learn about yourself through the race or at the race? And that includes, and maybe most importantly, the day-to-day consistency of the training that led up to the race in terms of, finding that breakthrough or finding that transcendence that we're after. And then finally, how would you convince somebody to come and run Prairie on Fire 2026 with us? So we got four questions, four prompts, and we'll just go right through it, starting with number one, your race summary.
Uh, yeah, like you said, this was my first. This is my first real race, real competition that I especially trained for. I spent all year training for it. Uh, Zach, our coach, Zach, uh, put out the challenge in January. Hey, y'all should come over to Prairie on Fire with us, but he gave us the stipulation: you gotta guarantee that you'll run at least 31 miles, which in itself was a big deal because at the time I couldn't even finish a quarter mile because of injury and being in the winter funk. But so the start line was a huge deal for me to go from not even being able to run a quarter mile to showing up was a huge deal. And honestly, whenever I got to the start line, uh, I honestly didn't know if I had 31 miles in me because my current PR at the time was I ran one marathon length run, which wasn't even an official race. It's just I went out and ran 26 miles, and which was a disaster, except for I did complete it. uh, but when the day started, I tried to approach the day as though it were a normal day, and so I kept my I didn't keep my necessarily ritual of the morning, but I kept my routine of the morning and sort of my ritual. And so I got up about the time I usually get up, and I got ate the same thing I always eat. And I just treated it as a regular day because it was pretty awesome. It was just like a day of hanging out with the homies, and we go run. That's what we do. So even though I haven't been running with anybody, it was like not Saturday was always my long run day. So it wasn't like this was a big deal. And I had it, and I locked it in my mind that I was going out for a lap, a 4.16 mile run. That's what I was getting up and going to do. That was kind of the approach that I took in it. And but honestly, when I got to the start line, I didn't know if I had 31 miles in me. I wasn't too worried. I just didn't know. And I didn't have a lot of anxiety, or I wasn't pumped. I wasn't really pumped up. It was just like a day. And but I had the honor of, and this is actually a huge highlight of the race for me. I had the honor of lining up next to Louis Rivolo, and it was incredible. I didn't realize this at the time, but upon reflection, whenever I started reflecting on everything, I realized this. Whenever I lined up next to Louis was confident. He's done this thing before many times, but he was really confident. He was really positive. And I have this memory etched in my mind of looking at Louis. Well, first off, Garmin, I opened Garmin to do my track on run, right? And Garmin is like, hey, it suggested workout was go for a long run. So I made the joke to Louis, and I was like, the Garmin thinks I should go for a long run. He's like, perfect day for it. And anyways, he smiled back at me, and I've got that image etched in my memory because I realize now on reflection that when I was standing next to Louis and I absorbed his confidence. I decided to absorb his confidence. And that moment that he smiled at me, it was guaranteed that I was going to run at least 31 miles. And I didn't realize that at the time, but upon reflection, I did. So that was awesome because this is the first time I've got to go and run with somebody. And I've done most of the training, pretty much all of it by myself in isolation. Although we have our online connections, and that online community, is definitely something. They kept me going in the light, with a light in the darkness, and they kept me accountable, and they kept me encouraged. And I wouldn't have never done it without the community. I mean, there's no way. But to be in person was just a whole different thing. And so that was my first big experience of the race, was lining up next to Louis. And just go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, the life hack is running laps with Louis, or running ultras with Louis, or just talking with Louis and hanging out with him, because that is, I talked about him a lot last episode. He's the sensei. He's the guy with all the wisdom and all of the energy that you want on a big day like that. So I just want to shout out him, but also just highlight the value of coming to the race, not necessarily knowing anybody in terms of having met them in person, but feeling like you already know them through this strong accountability and these bonds that you feel in the online community. People, they kind of joke, for people in our orbit, like, oh, you're gonna go like run with that person you met on Twitter, and it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm gonna do, because no one around here seems to get why I want to do these things, but this guy seems to, and we're gonna have 1 or 2 days where we can go and realize that in person. And before the race has even started, you have this incredible lift just from being surrounded by people who, you've probably thought about in terms of, I want this person to breathe some life into me or encourage me, or I want to soak up a little bit of their experience or a little bit of their wisdom. So, not to interject too much,
Yeah.
but Louis deserves all the praise, always, all the time. So I
Well,
had to go in.
and not for nothing as well. I tend to be a very empathetic person. I'm just really understanding this even at 47. I'm really just now starting to grab a hold of this knowledge because I've always been empathetic, but I didn't realize I was taking on other people's emotions before, and it would mess me up. But now I've become aware that I can take on other people's emotions, and that's what I did with Louis, standing next to him, and yourself and Zach, because I'm certain, I know that one of the reasons I wasn't nervous at the starting line, even though I didn't know that I had the 31 miles in me, I decided to also adopt the faith that you and Zach had in me.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I appreciate that. We totally believed in you. And when Zach mentioned, just for people listening, when he mentions, I don't want you to show up unless you run 31 miles, it's not like, oh, you ran 6 laps instead of 7 laps, so you're like out of the community. It's more,
Mm.
if
Yeah.
you're going to show up, you need to start today training seriously to do your absolute best on race day, because that's why we're doing it, is to hold ourselves accountable and to show up and give our best. And we knew that you would do that. It doesn't matter the number. We knew that you would show up and pour out that heart of yours, that one that feels the emotion, in a way that you had never experienced. And we wanted you to have that. And it's very cool that, you used a little bit of our belief and our faith in you to give belief in yourself. And then lo and behold, you went out and proved who you were 10
Yeah,
times.
and not only that, but again, Louis, he helped me personally in my training leading up to it, at least twice, big time. Specifically, we talked twice about my training and what and how to train, which was huge because I ain't ever trained for anything like this. But also, he gave me the strategy that I adopted, which was run slow and finish in enough time to get loaded back up and go back out. That way you don't wear yourself out on the lap. And you and his the thinking is you'll go further because you're not burning up as much. But you're getting back. I was consistently getting back 3 to 5 minutes before the next lap, which was fine. I had plenty of time to shove something in my mouth to eat and guzzle a bottle of water, which I trained myself to do, and fill up my water bottle for the track. So it was good. And Louis gave me that strategy, and that allowed me to really enjoy the run too. And it was the whole thing is very interesting because the only thing I actually focused on was my average pace per lap, the whole 4 miles. I didn't focus on anything else. If you asked me what lap we were on during the race, I would be like, I don't really know. I didn't even keep track. And but only thing I worried about was my average pace because if I hit my pace, I would get back in time. I would have the time, and I'd get it back out there. That was the only thing I was worried about. I wasn't worried about numbers. I wasn't worried about what lap I was on, how far I'd gone, and really, we did 2 laps, 8 miles, and I'm not a huge runner. Before this, my personal record is 1 marathon, and the second longest was 16 miles, which I did a few weeks beforehand, and then 15 miles. So we did 2 laps, and I remember telling Zach, "Is like I don't even feel like I've ran 4 miles," and it was just an incredible experience with all the people, just not just the people we were running with, the DHT team and the tribal team, but the fans, the families, and everyone who was there, because you get a cheer twice every hour, right? When you take off and when you come back. So it's awesome. I mean, you get that bump every hour twice. But we went 3 laps before I even really felt like I had gone on a run, which was incredible because that was 12 miles. And so I'd only done one marathon length run and 16 miles after that. I didn't even feel really feel like I was pushing anything until I got 31 miles. Like my legs didn't, nothing bothered me until I got 31 miles, which then was my legs started bothering me a little bit, which the race for me went exactly how I thought it would. So there was no surprises. So that was awesome. Like I said, I started the year injured really, and I couldn't run a quarter mile because my legs had gone bad on me, especially my feet and my calves, my lower part of my leg. And so I did a lot of work in the 9 months because obviously but I knew that my legs were still weak because I had to work on my running, and there was only so much I could do in the time that I had. So I still knew my legs were the weak point. But my legs didn't go weak until they didn't even start to hurt until mile 31 and or so, the lap 8. Lap 7, yeah, lap 7 is when they started to hurt a little bit. But that wasn't like serious hurt. That's like I've gone on a long run and my body knows it type hurt, right? Um, so whenever I came into lap, uh, it was interesting because Zach told me that whenever you go out there, you will have moments where it will really, really suck and you'll be in a lot of pain. And he said, keep going because it's a wave and it will reside. And so lap 7 was when that started happening to me. And I said, well, Zach said, and I trusted what Zach said. And by the time I headed back out on lap 8, I was fine. And lap 8 was my goal, right? That's when I would be going over 31 miles. I think we finished lap 8 in like 33 miles or so.
Yeah, lap 8 gets you over 50K, which is a big milestone for people in
Yeah.
that race format. Let me just interject quickly with the race format. If you haven't listened to any of the other Backyard Ultra podcasts, what are you doing? But this is a race where we all start in one central location, like Ronald was mentioning, and we run a 4 1/6 mile loop, and we go on the hour every hour, and you go until you can't go anymore, and the race is over when there's only one person left running the loop. So kind of right in the middle of the story, but if you don't know
Yeah.
necessarily what we're talking about with this race, then now you've got a little bit of an anchor.
So,
But yeah, 50K for 8 laps, which is a giant accomplishment for anybody taking on this race.
yeah, so whenever I came in at the end of lap 8, I had a very emotional moment because I was almost there. Like you know the course. I came past the playground and I was coming up towards the top of that loop and about to come back down. And I was doing good. I was fine. And I had to stop running because I got very emotional, very overcome with emotion because I had done it. It was done. I had set forth on this goal, and here I was, little redneck me, doing an ultra marathon, and I'm just a dude who works 9 to 5, and I was overcome. I couldn't run. I was like, I wanted to cry, but I got to finish this lap. But it was because I had done it, and I put in a lot of work. I mean, I put in a lot of work over those 9 months, and there was a lot of darkness in that work. I remember many nights whenever I was doing the work and building up. There was many nights when I'd go on a run in the evening, and it'd be like a mile or a mile and a half, like at 13, 14 minutes. And I would come up to the house and go up the stairs to the house, and my legs were just killing me. My knees were screaming at me, and my legs were killing me. But I kept doing it. And to come to that moment was powerful for me. And that was towards the end of lap 8, which led. So I was already emotional, and this led to the funniest part of the race, because they had decided they would give you a challenge coin whenever you finished an ultra marathon
Yep.
distance. Whenever you finished lap 8, they would give you a challenge coin for accomplishing it.
Yep.
And so I was already emotional, and I was in the military, and to me, you get a challenge coin when you're done with something, right? So they hand me that challenge coin at the end of the lap, and it was one of my slowest laps. But I come in, and this girl hands me this challenge coin, and in my mind, I don't say any of this, but in my mind, I'm like, no effing way, I finished it. I did not fail. I'm thinking she's saying, you did your best, nice race, here you go.
Get out of here. You're done.
Yeah, and I'm like, no effing way, man. There's no way I didn't make it. I'm trying to find the clock, and like I'm in Zach's tent, which is right there. And I walk around the tent, and I finally see the clock. I'm like, no, see, I made it. I made it. Then I realized what the coin was all about. But on reflection, it was very funny. But I was already emotional, and I was actually pretty upset because I was like, there's no way I didn't make it. But upon reflection, it is very funny. But I eventually understood what the deal was. But I was pretty upset for a moment there, and I was already emotional. And so I came around lap 9, and I finished it with Zach, and we were coming around the very end, same spot, and I was talking to Zach, and I was like, last time I was right here, I almost cried. And he's like, "Don't worry, brother, there's more to come." And I was like, I clarified, and I was like, "No, I wasn't in pain or anything." He's like, I know." And but so I went, finished 9 fine, but my legs were starting to hurt then, and I wanted to quit on 9, and I really wanted to quit, and my legs were really hurting, and I told myself I needed to go at least one more, and so I went out on 10, and my legs were very bad. I started out super slow. Um, but every time I ran, it was like I audibly grunted to get myself to move because my legs were just hurting. And I just kept the mantra in my mind though. I was like, I'm going to finish this lap, and I just kept saying to myself, stay in the fight. I, I, I did the math on my pace wasn't, you know, I was still having 3 to 5 minutes, but I was like, okay, so what's the absolute minimum to finish this lap? And as long as I stayed under that, keep going. And I just kept telling myself over and over, stay in the fight, stay in the fight. And so I did finish lap 10, and that was very painful with my legs. The great news is my cardio never gave out on me. I was still running at 125, 130 heart rate. So, I mean, it's conceivable my cardio was good enough to go 50 miles. I don't know. But I knew this was coming. Like I said, nothing unexpected. I knew my legs were still weak. And so lap 10 was the absolute pain. I kind of was disappointed, honestly, because it's like I didn't get to that total body collapse because my legs just give out. And so 10 was my end. I walked out on 11. I knew I wasn't going to make it. I just made that initial loop back to around where you go to the bridge and then walk back in.
Yeah.
I wish I would have just went out to the lap and just not finished, but I didn't.
Your race is amazing. There's something very unique about the end of everyone's races that's kind of just striking me now because I've been doing a lot of these debriefs, and I did my own podcast on my own race reflection. Everybody thinks that the way they end is not glorious enough. Like no one is like, man, I really went out all in glory. It's like that guy. There's someone else. It's like I wish I could have done a little bit more of what that because you get to see everybody all day, like going through
Yeah.
it and struggling, seeing people at their most like exposed and vulnerable, and when you end up having to take yourself out of the race or the race takes you out, um
Yeah.
you just kind of don't see yourself in that heroic light that you see everybody else in. It doesn't feel quite the same. No one has the breakthrough when it's like I'm finally done. Everyone's broken.
Yeah.
It's more like your swell of emotion, which is very similar to me. It's like something happens to you out on the course at a moment, which you may have engineered, you may have aimed towards, or may just have emerged throughout the journey. But there's something interesting about the way these all end at the backyard. That's just coming to me now. Maybe more probing and more diving into that as we continue to do this
Yeah.
race format. But that's an incredible story, especially considering for people out there like who are like, who are the people who can train and do these things and find the time and the resolve, right? A guy couldn't run in January. A little bit of discipline, a little bit of fortitude, right? Encouragement
Hmm.
and love from others, some grace and support and guidance. And you just keep showing up for yourself, your shirt, which is your coaching shirt, show up and do the work, right? Like 9 months later, you're running over 40 miles, like on a day, and oh, it could have been this, it could have been that. It's not, you're
Yeah.
still in awe of your accomplishment and rightfully so, but there's something about the race where you're just not, no one is satisfied when it's over. I think even the people that win sometimes aren't satisfied because they think, I guess we could have even gone further. One of our mutuals on social, Danny, the ultra runner, he just won a backyard
Yeah.
ultra. I think he was out in Idaho where he lives,
Hmm.
and he's gone over 100 in backyard ultras before, and he won this thing, but he only went, I think, like 20 laps or 19 laps, and he's like, oh, I
Yeah.
wish other people would have gone longer. It's like, dude, you won the race and you're upset.
Yeah.
Uh, just
Well,
like there's something very interesting about this format that I think I appreciate, and I think your story helps to bring out the kind of meaning you can extract from this particular kind of race.
what was one of I was pretty down on myself, honestly,
Yeah.
afterwards. And but Zach, we keep calling him Zach Hommel, of course, uh, really helped me put it in perspective. Much like when I did my marathon back in the day, Mike Donatelli was my coach, and like when I did the marathon, I couldn't run the last 11 miles, but I did complete them on busted legs. And Mike did me the favor of pointing out, but you did 11 miles on busted legs. And Zach did the same thing for me on this because like my legs are still weak. But he said, "What isn't it awesome that you had to go 41 miles to find out?"
It is awesome. There's people out there who don't think they could make it 10 miles.
And
um, Sorry, you were saying?
no, I was going to get ahead of it. What's
Yeah, yeah,
the
no, it's
the
okay.
second question? You'll have to remind me on all these.
Oh no, no, you hit the first two, which is race. Unless you want to talk about sort of anything that occurred after the race in terms of like support, crew, vibes, hanging
Oh,
out by the fire, any of
but
those things.
I'll just point out the highlight of my race was, of course, I was my strategy was to go slow, and it was on like late lap 8 or 9. We were going across the bridge, which takes you into the actual trail part, and I ran 7 of the 10 hours without a shirt on because I always run without a shirt. But my secondary goal at Prairie on Fire was to show up jacked. I wanted to be able to run at least 31 miles, but I didn't want to be skinny. And so, as it turned out, though, I actually showed up the most jacked I've ever been. and because that was part of the work that I put in. And it was awesome. The best part of going of the race was when we were going across, and this one guy comes passes me because I'm running slow, and he's like, "Hey, how's it going, big guy? It's harder to run around with all those biceps and pecs, isn't it?" And I was like, "Okay, I made it."
Winning.
I don't know if he meant to insult me, but it was a great compliment.
Nobody at that race is going to be insulting anybody. That race is all love and
Yeah,
support and encouragement, except for maybe
it
there's one or
is.
two people that aren't like that, and they stick out so easily, and they have this off energy to them. No, but everybody is super supportive at a race like that, so it was almost certainly a
That's
compliment.
true.
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah, and a big part towards the end is I ended up, as it were, because I was getting slower from my already previous slow strategy, is I end up isolated a lot by myself. It was really awesome in the early part of the race because, and of course, there's lot more people dropping off at this point. So a lot of the slow people are already dropping out. And but one thing that was super awesome experience for me in the race was I think of myself as a coach. And as I was out there, even whenever it was getting hard for me, I was still encouraging other people. I wasn't thinking about it. That's just what I was doing. And so that was a great affirmation for me. Is like, yes, I am that guy. And but towards the end of my race, my part of the race, I ended up getting isolated more and more. So there was a lot of mental battle that went into the ultimate finish of my race, and that's the way it is with most everyone, right? It usually ends up coming down to mental battles.
Yeah, everybody has to go to the dark place if they want to truly get the best out of themselves and the most out of that race and the race experience. No, I think that you've littered these throughout your story, but the third prompt is what lessons did you learn about yourself either at the race or through the necessary day-to-day training and accountability that the race gave you in terms of personal development or character growth or attaining virtue or all those nice fuzzy things that we talk about a lot online and certainly is at the heart of what we do as coaches.
Well, the race itself was, it truly was just the celebration and the consummation of the journey that I went on leading up to it. uh, that was the wisdom that I received from people like you and Zach, and that's the approach I took to it. I eventually understood that it's the journey, not the goal, because like the Greeks, the olive wreath crown, it does fade. I mean, we're not even 2 weeks away, or whatever it is, maybe 2 weeks now, and the goal is already, the satisfaction of the goal is already gone. Um, and I exceeded my goals.
You
Uh,
were saying the night of the race that the goal wasn't even good enough. You got to the 40 miles and you're like, oh no, my legs are
yeah,
weak. Like you surpassed the goal and it still wasn't good enough
yeah.
in the moment. Like obviously it's a big triumph, but you we're interested in these emotional swings, right? And the ways in which the meaning of the race like washes over us and these interesting positives and negatives. Um, just as a way to highlight this this
And
phenomenon.
that reminds me of one of the things that's so awesome about being out there in community with DHT and tribal is it really did, it felt like to me, even though it was the first serious race I had trained for and showed up to, it just felt like to me another Saturday that I'm hanging out with the homies and this is what we do. And that's what community does for you, right? I was facing this huge goal and obstacle, and it just seemed like another day, and I've got my homies with me because that's what we do.
It's exactly what we do. So the lesson is about process and journey and accepting that as opposed to goals and sort of outcomes as the drivers of motivation. Have you seen that sort of transfer over into other areas of life as opposed to just the physical training?
Yeah, especially because, again, I couldn't run a quarter mile without substantial pain in the beginning, so I had to do rehab as well, not just training. And I had to do the rehab because I wasn't going to get there without it. And rehab is as much your approach, your mental and emotional approach to it, as it is the work. And so that was a huge blessing to have to go through that rehab to learn. It was a blessing because I had to go through the rehab. I had to bring the mentality to the rehab to go through it, to see it through. And I got the proof, not just that rehab works, but that work works.
Mm.
And if you stick with it, if you show up and you do the work day to day, and that was a big lesson of what I learned in the process was no matter where you're at, like I got this goal of 31 miles, I can't even run a quarter mile. No matter where you're at, yes, have awareness of where you're wanting to go and what's ahead. Don't get blindsided, be wise, but do not ignore the work that is in your hands. Don't let that which is out there cover up your attention for the work that's in your hands. And that's translated to life. That's not just endurance training or rehab. That's translated to life. I have I get anxious and I worry about finances. I worry about what might happen. I worry about where the country's going. And it's really easy to let all that take away your focus on the work that's in your hands to do right now.
Yeah, and what's so neat about your answer is it reveals the powerful inner work that has to happen for any of this stuff to materialize on the outside, especially with that internalization of the work through your rehab. If you're looking for these like signposts of inner transformations along the journey, that's a big one because that then makes you a believer in yourself in a way in which you may not have recognized before. And that's sort of like the final question here about these lessons is, with this internalization of process as the way, how has that reframed or opened up the way in which you believe in yourself and the now seemingly more open possibilities of the future that are maybe a little more closely aligned to your potential?
Well, it smashed my self-limiting beliefs. I've struggled with
Yeah.
that my whole life um, because I lined up and didn't even know if I could get 31 and went 42.
Yeah.
But I left the possibility open. I didn't decide the possibility. I let it happen. But what really happened in the transformation of the journey to of the training is now I have learned through real uh, evidence that if I show up and do the work on anything, I can do anything. I would have told you it was impossible for me to be able to run 31 miles. There was times during that 9 months that I thought it was impossible that I would ever effectively run again, much less run 31 miles. And I found that if you stay with the process, if you keep showing up, if you keep doing it, you can accomplish God knows what. And and the faith that you and Zach particularly had in me, and even Ryan Dreyer of Tribal Training, um, the faith that you guys had in me was fundamental to my success because I didn't have the faith. And what something that is really learned is how far can you go if you had faith in yourself?
Yes. Yes. That's,
And we don't know.
for
You don't
all,
know because
yeah,
I didn't know I could do 42 miles.
nobody knows, right? Like we need people
Yeah.
on the outside to bring the better part of us out because we have that hard barrier on our potential that we look up at because we I put out just a little video on social about this earlier, but it's like this common pattern that I see in the coaching calls. It's we don't give ourselves enough credit for the good that we do because we're only looking at our weakness. We're only looking at our limits. We're only looking at our flaws. We're over analyzing the things that we got wrong and that we wish we did better on. We're not over celebrating a lot of the good things because we want to be humble. But it puts us in a little bit of this trap where we're always a little bit behind. So we need people to call us towards the right challenges to bring out, the better part of us that's maybe just a little bit too timid. And there are many arenas that can do this, but the public forum, maybe speak to that for a minute, because this was your very first official race of any real kind. Maybe the first time you
Yeah.
competed in a sport, what, since high school? Like, seriously?
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah.
Speak to the
Uh,
the the speak to the public nature of this whole experience and what that did in terms of maybe some terror, but also some you mentioned a little bit with the cheers that we got there, but also like the overwhelming love and support you can find when you choose to embrace that challenge, maybe again with like the right communities.
well, whenever I started running, it's so awesome. The running community, generally speaking, is good. The fitness community, generally speaking, is good. Because whenever I started running and I was posting 13, 14-minute miles and mile and a halves, nobody ever said, "Why are you posting that? You're so slow. What are you doing?" Everyone celebrated the fact that I was doing it. That's all that anyone cared about. And it's so great to experience that. And there's very few places where you can experience that kind of camaraderie than doing hard things together. And everyone knows if you're doing a hard thing for you. Um, and that's what's so great about Zach's community. Like I said, like you mentioned, the stipulation was go 31 miles. Nobody would have kicked me out of the community if I did the training as hard as I could, the best I could, and I showed up and only went 4 or 5, 6 laps. Nobody would throw
That's
me
all.
out if that was my best and I seriously put in the work.
Yes,
But the point of you need to go 31 mile stipulation is to call you beyond yourself.
correct.
And that's what we need others to do. And so if you're wherever you're at, I mean, it's hard to believe many people are in worse shape than towards running than I was in January. I could do a quarter mile if I endured great pain. That was it. And then I went 9 months later doing the work and went 42 miles. And I am a fairly healthy person. I am a healthy person in general. I am blessed. But you ain't got to do 42 miles. But the public nature of this event, especially Prairie on Fire, I believe, but I don't have a lot to compare it against. But Prairie on Fire, particularly getting to that point, you should go because it's such an incredible event. Like the mutual, you mentioned Danny, he only ended up going like 83 miles because that's all he had to do. The person who won Prairie on Fire went 154 miles, 38 laps. So if
Yeah,
you want
yeah.
to really push something, that it's one of the highest performing backyard ultras in the nation.
We've been talking about this in our team chat, all the people that went from the team, and it was I think it was something like the highest percentage of the field going over 100 miles in any backyard anywhere ever. I think
Hmm.
so. This one from 2025 was one of the highest performing for the field in terms of the percentage of people. And just a little background story in this race. 4 years ago, this race was 14. It was like a dozen people, and they were all part of the race director's running club. And he basically just had to bully everybody. He's like, "We're just gonna do this." And then the next year, Dylan and I showed up, and there were 54 people in the race. 54 people in the race. 2 years ago, when we brought our first kind of big crew all to the race, there were 58 people that made the night course. And this year there was 180 people in the race, and as I said, I don't know the exact percent, the numbers, but there was probably almost 2 dozen or more that went over 100. It was wild. The caliber of runner and the just the vibe of the seriousness of the event.
And Prairie on Fire, like if you want to become an ultra marathon or do something and say, "Hey, I did an ultra marathon," Prairie on Fire is like a cheat code because whenever I went past a marathon, I blew right past it. I didn't even hardly realize I had gone over a marathon, and and it was because of the community specifically I was connected to, but it was also just I went there by myself as far as personal life. I didn't get to bring anybody with me. And of course, I'm attached to the community, but I didn't have anyone specifically there in my life, my wife or my kids. But I got to, as I was coming and going, I got to give high five to kids because there was kids lined up and they were like, give us a high five. And that's incredible. And you come in on every lap, and there was this one guy standing next to, leaning up against a tree, and he was clapping every time. And you get that twice an hour. You get to, they cheer you on when you leave, and they cheer you on when you come in. And people are bringing their families. A lot of the people in our communities are bringing their families, and you know that. And there are families there. There are husbands and wives working together, and there are children cheering on not just their parents, but cheering on everyone. There's signs everywhere. All this love just exuded to everyone. And everyone, like you said, there really was. I don't think the guy was insulting me because I didn't get that vibe from anybody at the place. It was like everyone is celebrating every lap with you. And if you go, no matter how many laps you go, everyone is just happy to have you there. And it's a cheat code. You want to go run an ultra marathon, qualify as an ultra marathon runner, go to Prairie on Fire and you'll get it.
Yeah, yeah. It's a love fest. Ultras are generally love fests. That campground that they house it in is just the perfect spot to maximize the love. With literally, you run the beginning and the end of the lap around a playground, like right
Mm-hmm.
around where all the kids are playing. It's the best.
That's true.
And you get to see the supporters, but you also see all the racers. You go with all the racers every lap. Everybody goes together. You're never and when you say you're isolated, like out on the course, not like in another ultra marathon where it's a trail ultra, you might be 5, 6 miles away from the aid station, and you're not going fast. You might not see another person for another 2.5 hours, right? Like,
Yeah.
even if you're struggling, you're around people and you're coming back into the camp where you're going to get that
Yeah.
boost from every person. It does get a little bit different in the night course when everybody is leaving and going to sleep and the energy shifts, but that's going to be a story for next Prairie on Fire for you.
Yes.
In terms of what I'm sure you're aiming to experience and what you're hoping to get out of next year's race. But I think you did a pretty
Yeah.
good job of selling it. But anything else in terms of, that's certainly good for somebody who's maybe not a runner, but just like maybe somebody who is a runner, maybe somebody who's an excellent runner. Like, why should anybody come to this event? Because, we're trying to get everybody to come. We want the biggest party ever next
Well,
year, guys. So
if you're an excellent runner, you're going to extend your personal best. And that's what's so awesome about a backyard ultra, right? Like if you sign up for a 5, 10, 50, 100 Ks, 100 miles, you just run that distance and you're done. With the backyard ultra, like their saying says, is it's not a race, it's a reckoning. You go until you can't.
it's so true. It's such a good tag. It's an absolute reckoning.
Because if I had signed up for a 50K and I'd have made it, I'd have been like, yay, I made a 50K, but I could have done more.
And this one, it's like you can't do anymore, and then you still feel like you can do more, as we sort
Which
of alluded
it is funny
alluded to
because
earlier.
it is funny because my camper was pretty close to the course.
Yeah,
actually the
right there.
closest camper to the course, just about. And so I sat there for another hour to wait for everyone else to come back in because I wanted to help everyone, but everyone was already helped. But so when everyone went back out on lap 12, I decided I was getting cold and I had sat there for a while. So I limped back to my camper, and of the two steps to get into my camper, it took me a while to figure out how I was going to do it because I literally couldn't lift my legs. So
Yeah,
maybe I
the
didn't
body.
quit too early.
It's one of those amazing things that when you're in motion, you don't necessarily feel like it's all that bad. And then the second you stop, all those muscles that you've been brainwashing not to feel the pain, and you're just convincing yourself, like, I'm okay, like, I can still go, it's not so bad. They say my time to yell is right now, and I'm bringing all the fury that you made me forget about. Well, you made me do all that stuff. And, it's each race experience is different in terms of what the limit looks like and where you hit it. The backyard is unique in how it drains you in so many mental and emotional ways because you're always trying to figure out when the end is because you're not calculating towards like the finish line because the finish line is almost like an internal finish line that you have to battle against yourself to figure out. Whether that's through like a physical issue that you just can't go anymore, which is certainly like what you and I kind of experienced, or whether it is just more of a mental issue upon reflection. Like it's possible in 5, 6, 7 months you look back and you think, was it the legs? Maybe not. Maybe it wasn't, but that's only a lesson that sort of time can reveal, and that we're eager to
Well,
continue to learn about ourselves through the races because I hope to be showing to everybody the value of the discourse around the race, the value of sharing, the value of opening up, and the value of trying to chronicle the experiences to make sense of them. Because to use like I got all these military history books here to use like a term. It's like the fog of war is the race.
hmm
There's so many
yeah,
things that are going on. You don't really, you think you meet somebody, but you don't necessarily remember them because you're meeting new people. You're out going and doing this hard physical thing. You're trying to figure out what to eat. You're trying to figure out how to like mend your body on the go, and then your body just rebels. You have this fog because you've used so much energy. The next couple of days are this haze, and
mm,
you have this euphoria. You have this, I just did this very cool thing with all these people that I love. It's like a love fest. And the secret of the love fest is the harder it gets, the more love comes out because you're kind of like opening up that heart and you're forcing the love to come on out in these moments of extreme vulnerability of body, mind, and spirit. And if we want to be taking real, concrete, and valuable lessons from these experiences, we need to have talks like this. We need to do debriefs. We need to journal. We need to write. We need to speak. We need to share the experience. Like I think my kids are coming downstairs to share the
yeah.
experience with us now. And Ronald got a chance to talk to my kids at the race. Would you like to come say hello to Mr. Potts? I think the answer is no. But that's a very good cue
Yeah.
to try to start wrapping this guy up. But
Um,
that's a very it's a very integral component of why we do these things and what we hope to get out of them. So, if anything for the people listening, this is just an exposition of the types of things that we talk about. You can come say hi, sweetheart, if you want. Nope. No, that's okay.
yeah.
Solo dad duty calls for creative
Yeah.
measures, and the creative measures have a time limit.
Yeah.
But
Well, I was really looking
this is
forward to having this conversation, particularly with you, because it helps me to process. It helps me to have this dialogue helps me to process. There's some things that I took the week of reflection and I haven't really spoken too much on it because I want to reflect on it and I want to really grab a hold of it. But dialogue and these conversations are so important and we get to share we're sharing the experience because we both did it. And there's no bond greater than the bond of blood and hardship.
We haven't quite got the kids on the live camera yet. Oh, we got a hand. We got a hand yet. But that's exactly right. I'm just gonna finish this up, please. A little
Yep.
quiet. I'm very fond of having my kids bomb my calls because it's a
Yeah.
litmus test for the people who are I'm on the call with, and you're smiling, and I just know what's in your heart, so you're cool. I can't see anybody out there who's listening, but if you're offended by the fact my daughter is putting her little night robe on my head right now, and that she's kind of determining the end of this podcast. Well,
Yeah.
that's a litmus test because you either find it endearing and authentic, or you find it something else, and that's okay either way for me. But I really appreciate your point about having the dialogue and having the space to process. So often we do these big things and we return to life and nobody cares that we do the big things, and that hurts.
Yeah.
And then it
Yeah.
discourages us from wanting to go do the big thing again because, as you say, it's 9 months of hard, arduous work, and the race is this big time celebration, and you just want to hold on to that feeling long enough to get you through to getting back to work and aiming for the next one. And I've just seen it happen so many times where people do the race, they don't have the space, and then they're gone. They're gone from training.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you for coming on and opening up and sharing, because I think it's really inspiring and motivating for people out there to hear what you can accomplish in 9 months of hard work from essentially 0 to 42 miles of champion. Say congratulations, Ronald, you're a champion. Congratulations, Ronald,
Thank,
you're a champion.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on,
Yeah,
and
she's not
we'll see
nearly
you
as
around.
bashful in real life.
No, she's not. She's playing. See, and he knows too, because you sat around the campfire and you got us into a little bit of you got Daddy into a coffee war with Zach, which wasn't a good one. Which he won. This is going to be the final thing on the podcast. My daughter, right here, was defending the family loyalty and the honor by saying that I loved coffee more than Ron or Zach, and Zach had to challenge this. We got a little man here too. Zach had to challenge this, and it was like, maybe, I'm not sure. And then we're sitting around the fire after, we had all gone out. It's like 2 or 3 in the morning. Zach has literally just finished his backyard lap. And the first thing he says when he sits down in the campfire chair is, can someone go get me a giant hot black coffee? And is like, I can't even think about coffee. Dude, you win. You win the coffee thing. Also, come to Prairie on Fire because we get to hang with our kids and families and around the campfire with all of our homies. We do the hard thing, but it's really just camping with your
And
friends.
and Ryan put out all kinds of posts on his Substack that just helped me along the way. They were perfectly timed for my training to add elements to my training. Check out Ryan Dreyer's Tribal Way Substack. It's loaded with
Yeah.
free information. And so I encourage people to hook up with tribal training or Zach's community or Jordan himself or even me if you want. Get in a community and pursue this, and it will change your life like few things can.
Yeah, I appreciate the shout out. Coach really showed up, and he surprised everybody at the race too, which was cool to have him there, be there in person. Yeah, but we
Mm.
ran a 5-week run fundamentals course, which brought in a bunch of new tribal people. Which, like, Uriah was one of the guys who came in, and he ended up being the 100-mile man
Mm.
from tribal.
And
And Andrew, who was
just
there supporting everybody all day.
just for note, I've never actually had the ability to pay Ryan as my coach, but he did show up at the race and he helped me a lot. Just his presence and his encouragement, and he's helped me do that in multiple places. So I loved Ryan, and I've never been paid to say such a thing.
Ryan is absolutely the truth. Like, that's why I
Yeah,
angled myself onto his team.
smart move.
Because he is absolutely the guy. We have a great community of coaches and leaders, and everybody has their own style, and everybody has their own way. And Ronald's certainly right. If you're interested in being a part of this, or you're already part of the community, you kind of know what it is. But there's lots of us out there who are willing to guide, willing to give advice, and we're always available to talk. And we hope to see everybody there next year.
Yes.
I know you're already thinking about a target. You don't have to say anything yet, but we'll talk.
Yeah.
It was really awesome
No,
to finally get to meet you in person. after all the years and all the Twitter journeys that
Yeah.
we've been on, and it was incredible to watch you just dominate that race with your own style and your own presence and your own conviction in yourself, even if it didn't seem like it internally. It was certainly a quiet. There's a quiet confidence that you carried the whole weekend, which made an
Yeah.
impression on everybody.
Yeah, I had my strategy and I was going to run it. I didn't care if I was the last person in back. If I was on time for me, that's all that mattered.
That's great. I think there's just enough anarchy down here that I have to call it quits. I hope
Yep.
their voices
Okay.
aren't bleeding through in this final 5 minutes, but this is great. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
All right.
We'll catch you in the next one. Thank you again, Ron. This is
Yeah.
great. I'm just going to
Thank you for
stop.
having me.